I stared at the empty reflection in my bathroom mirror and wondered when I'd forgotten how to fight. When exactly had I started accepting scraps of dignity instead of demanding respect? The answer glinted somewhere beneath the surface of my tired eyes. 68 years old, and I'd grown comfortable with compromise. But that was before I heard their laughter. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I returned from my doctor's appointment. I had barely closed the front door when it hit me. Unfamiliar laughter bouncing off the walls that I myself had built 35 years ago. Laughter that did not belong to me in a house that did. I left my purse in the entryway. My hands shook, not from fear, but from something I couldn't yet name. I walked slowly toward the living room, each step on the solid wood floor that I had chosen piece by piece, installed with my own hands during those 3 years of blood and sawdust and dreams. And then I saw them. Jessica, my daughter-in-law, standing by the main window pointing to the garden with that look of ownership she had perfected in recent months. Next to her, a man in a gray suit was taking pictures with his cell phone, a man I had never seen before in my life. "The finishes are original," she was saying with a bright smile. "Look at these high ceilings, this natural lighting. It's a gem of a property." I froze in the doorway. The stranger nodded, writing something in a notebook. "And how much is she asking for it?" Jessica didn't even flinch. $480,000. It's a fair price, considering the location and the size of the lot. $480,000. The exact value of my house, the number that only appeared in my private documents locked in my desk drawer. I felt the air grow thick around me like I was trying to breathe underwater. Then she saw me. Her eyes met mine for a fraction of a second. And in that instant, something in her expression changed. It was not shame. It was calculation. She was measuring what to say, how to get out of this. "Oh, Margaret," she said in a voice that was far too sweet. "I didn't hear you come in." I didn't answer. I just held her gaze while the stranger extended his hand to me. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Mr. Hernandez. I came to see the property." My mouth moved on its own. "To see my property." Jessica let out a nervous laugh. "It's just, well, I thought it would be a good idea to explore options." She approached me, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "After all, you've already lived your life, Margaret. This house is too big for one person. Don't you think it would be better to sell it so we could all enjoy that money?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mr. Hernandez coughed uncomfortably, looking between Jessica and me as if he had just realized he had walked into a minefield. But I didn't take my eyes off her, off that woman who had come to my house 2 years ago asking for shelter, who slept in my sheets, who ate from my plates, who swore in front of my son that she would love him in wealth and in poverty. "You've already lived your life." Those 5 words circled my head like angry bees. I took a deep breath. I felt the blood rise to my cheeks, not from shame, but from something more primitive, more ancient, something that had slept in me for too long. When I spoke, my voice came out calm, too calm. "And you," I paused, letting each word fall like a stone in still water. "You've just started ruining yours." Jessica blinked. The smile froze on her face. "Excuse me." I didn't repeat myself. I just turned to Mr. Hernandez, who was already putting away his notebook with obvious haste. "Mr. Hernandez, I'm sorry you wasted your time," I said with icy courtesy. "This house is not for sale. It never has been, and whoever told you otherwise has no right over it." The man nodded quickly, murmuring apologies as he headed for the door. Jessica tried to stop him, but it was too late. The door closed with a sharp click, and then we were alone. Jessica turned to me, and for the first time since I met her, I saw something different in her eyes. It was not regret. It was barely contained fury. "How dare you humiliate me like that?" she hissed. "I was just trying to help. This house is falling apart. You can't maintain it anymore. And Michael and you, I interrupted, live here because of my generosity. You eat my food. You sleep under my roof. And now I find you trying to sell what doesn't belong to you." She turned pale, completely pale. I just wanted... What did you want, Jessica?" My voice was still calm, but every word came out sharp as a scalpel. "To take my house from me while I'm still breathing. To leave me with nothing because you decided I'm not worth it anymore." She didn't answer. Her lips trembled. I walked toward her, and although I am 8 inches shorter at that moment, I felt like I was looking down on her. "This conversation is not over," I whispered. but I'm going to give you some advice. Pray that your son doesn't find out about this before I decide what to do with you." I turned and went up the stairs to my bedroom. My legs barely supported me, but I couldn't let her see it. I couldn't let her know that inside I was falling to pieces. I locked the door. I sat on the edge of my bed, that same bed where I slept with my husband for 30 years, where I cared for him in his last days, where I cried his death until I ran out of tears. And only then, in the silence of my own room, did I let the trembling in my hands spread throughout my body. "You've already lived your life. How dare she? How dare she look at me and decide that my time was over, that I no longer deserved the very roof I built with my own hands?" I clenched my fists on my lap, because that was the problem. Jessica didn't know who I was. She didn't know that this house was not just walls and windows. It was my work, my design, my sacrifice. And worse, she didn't know how far I was capable of going to protect it. But she was about to find out. Downstairs, I heard hurried footsteps, a door opening, Michael's voice asking what had happened, Jessica's shrill voice inventing her version of events. I got up and walked to the window. From there, I could see the garden I planted with my own hands, the lemon tree I planted when Michael was born, the iron bench where my husband and I drank coffee every morning. This was not just my house. It was my entire life. And no one, absolutely no one, was going to take it from me. That night, I didn't go down for dinner. I heard the soft knocks on my door, the voice of Michael, my son, asking if I was okay, saying we needed to talk, but I didn't answer. If I opened that door, if I saw his face, I might say things I couldn't take back. Instead, I sat in the armchair by the window watching the garden shadows as night swallowed the colors of the day. And there, in that silence, I did something I hadn't done in years. I remembered. My name is Margaret Wilson. I am 68 years old, but there was a time when 68 seemed like a distant eternity. There was a time when I was unstoppable. I closed my eyes and saw myself at 33 with my black hair pulled back in a ponytail, my hands stained with ink and plaster, bent over a drafting table in a tiny office that barely had windows. It was 1990. I had just graduated as an architect in a world that still looked strangely at women with hard hats and blueprints under their arms. My husband Robert worked as an accountant at a medium-sized company. Michael was barely 3 years old and ran barefoot through our rented house, a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, where the upstairs neighbors made so much noise it sounded like they were moving furniture at midnight. Margaret, Robert would tell me while we drank instant coffee in the early morning. "One day we're going to have our own house, one that you design, one that's just ours." I would smile, nod, but inside I thought not one day soon, because I was not one to wait. For 5 years I worked 3 jobs simultaneously. I designed houses by day for a firm where they paid me half what my male colleagues earned. In the afternoons, I taught technical drawing at a high school. And at night, after putting Michael to bed, I would lock myself at the dining room table and design freelance projects for small construction companies that needed cheap, fast plans. Robert never asked me to stop. He never told me that's enough, or get some rest. He took care of Michael when I had deadlines. He made me tea when my eyes could no longer focus on the numbers. He massaged my shoulders when the weight of worries bent my back. "You are the strongest woman I know," he would whisper in my ear. And I believed him because I had to. In 1995, after 5 years of sleeping no more than 4 hours a night, of saving every dollar that came into the house, of turning down outings and parties and vacations, we finally did it. We bought the land. It wasn't big, just 4,000 square feet in a quiet suburb in an area that was almost rural back then. But it was ours. I remember the day I stepped on that piece of land for the first time. It still smelled of recent rain. There was tall grass and rocks everywhere. Robert took my hand and asked me, "What do you see?" I smiled, closed my eyes, and saw everything. I saw the walls rising. I saw the windows letting in the morning light. I saw a garden where Michael could play. I saw a big kitchen where we would cook Sunday meals. I saw a library where we would keep the books we loved. I saw a home. "I see our life," I told him, and then I got to work. I designed every inch of this house, every angle, every window. I chose the orientation to take advantage of the morning sun in the bedrooms. I calculated the height of the ceiling so the heat wouldn't concentrate in the summer. I designed deep closets, spacious pantries, bathrooms with natural ventilation. But I didn't just design, I also built. Yes, myself, because we didn't have money to hire all the labor. So I learned. I learned to mix cement to lay bricks to level floors. I learned to use the trowel, the sander, the hammer. My hands, which before had only known pencils and rulers, became covered in calluses and scars. Robert worked with me every weekend. Michael played among the sandbags, building his own castles while we raised the walls of ours. It took us 3 years. 3 years of literal blood, sweat, and tears. 3 years of nights where I fell asleep with aching hands. 3 years of getting up before dawn to check that everything was moving forward. But in 1998, we finally moved in. I remember how I felt the first night I slept in this house, lying on the floor of the master bedroom because we didn't have a new bed yet. Looking at the ceiling I myself had planned, feeling the walls I myself had helped raise. I cried. I cried so much that Robert got scared. "What's wrong?" he asked, holding me. "Nothing," I whispered. "It's just, we did it. We really did it." This house wasn't just bricks and concrete. It was living proof that when a woman decides something, the entire universe has to step aside. The years passed. Michael grew up within these walls. He learned to ride a bike in this garden. He celebrated birthdays in this living room. He brought friends, girlfriends, dreams. Robert and I grew old here. We celebrated anniversaries, mourned losses, planted trees, repainted rooms. Every corner of this house held a piece of us. And then 8 years ago, Robert got sick. Pancreatic cancer stage 4. 6 months to live, the doctor said. He lived for 11. 11 months where this house transformed into a hospital, a refuge, a temple, where I transformed into a nurse, a warrior, an anticipated widow. I cared for him here in our bedroom in that bed where we had slept together for 30 years. I gave him his medicine. I bathed him when he could no longer do it himself. I read him his favorite books. I held his hand while the pain split him in two. And he died here in my arms, looking at me with those eyes that had seen me build empires from scratch. His last words were, "Take care of her. She is yours too." He wasn't talking about me. He was talking about the house. Because he knew. He knew this house was more than a place. It was my legacy, my masterpiece, my proof that Margaret Wilson had existed and had left her mark on this world. After his death, Michael wanted me to move in with him. "Mom, this house is too big for you alone," he'd say. "Come live with us." But I refused. How could I abandon the only place where I could still feel Robert? How could I leave the trees we planted together? The rooms we painted, the garden where I scattered his ashes? I stayed alone. Yes, but at home. And now, 27 years after I finished building it, 35 since I bought the land, someone walked into my living room and decided that none of that mattered, that I had lived long enough that it was time to sell. I opened my eyes. The night had completely fallen. The city lights flickered in the distance like fallen stars. I got up from the armchair. My knees protested, but I ignored them. I walked to my closet and took out an old shoebox that I kept on the highest shelf. Inside were the original plans for this house. Yellowed, folded, stained with coffee and tears and construction dust. I unfolded them on the bed. I ran my fingers over the lines I had drawn decades ago, every measurement, every calculation, every dream made real. This house was worth $480,000 according to the current market. But to me it was priceless. And if Jessica thought she could snatch it from me with fake smiles and unknown buyers, she was very mistaken, because I was Margaret Wilson, the woman who built her own castle. And castles do not surrender without a battle. I folded the plans carefully, put them back in their box, and then I did something I hadn't done since Robert's funeral. I knelt by the bed and prayed. I didn't pray for patience. I didn't pray for forgiveness. I prayed for strength because I was going to need it. The next morning I went down to breakfast as if nothing had happened. Jessica was in the kitchen making coffee. When she saw me enter, she visibly tensed. Her hand stopped over the coffee maker. "Good morning," I said in a neutral, almost friendly voice. She blinked, confused. "Good morning, Margaret." I said nothing more. I simply took out my favorite mug, the blue ceramic one Robert gave me on our 10th anniversary, and waited my turn to pour my coffee. The silence in the kitchen was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Michael came in minutes later with that face of a man who slept badly and woke up worse. My son, my only son, 43 years old, a civil engineer, his hair already thinning at the crown and those wrinkles around his eyes that made him look older than he was. He looked at me as if expecting an explosion, but I just smiled. "Did you sleep well, son?" His bewilderment was obvious. Yes, Mom. And you? Like always. I took a sip of my coffee. I'm going out for a few hours. I have some things to take care of. Jessica and Michael exchanged quick glances. She seemed relieved. He cautious. I didn't give them time to ask anything else. I took my keys, my purse, and left the house without looking back. But I didn't go to take care of things. I went to remember. I drove to a small cafe downtown where I used to go with Robert when we needed to escape the noise of the world. I sat at a table by the window, ordered an Americano, and let my mind travel back. 2 years. It had only been 2 years since Michael arrived with Jessica. It was an October afternoon. I was pruning the roses in the garden when I heard the doorbell. I opened the door, and there was my son with a suitcase in each hand and an unknown woman by his side. "Mom," he said with that nervous smile he used when he knew he was about to ask me for something big. "This is Jessica, my girlfriend." Girlfriend, not even fiancé, just girlfriend. Jessica was 32 then. Michael 41. 9 years difference. Long black hair, perfectly straight. Impeccable blood-red nails. Tight clothes that screamed brand names without actually being them. And that smile, God, that smile looked like it was practiced in front of a mirror. "A pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Wilson," she said in a soft, almost childish voice. "Michael has told me so much about you." I shook her hand. Cold, too cold for a warm day. "The pleasure is mine." I looked at my son. "Are you coming in or just visiting?" Michael cleared his throat. "Actually, Mom, we need a favor." "Of course you do." It turned out that Michael had lost his job 3 months ago. A restructuring at the company, they said. Last one in, first one out. And Jessica, as he told me, worked in sales but was between jobs. Between jobs. What an elegant way to say unemployed. "We need to stay here for a while," Michael said without looking me in the eyes. "Just until I find something new. A couple of months max." A couple of months. I should have said no. I should have asked why they didn't seek help from her family. I should have set clear rules, boundaries, specific dates. But I looked at my son, this man I had raised, and I saw something in his eyes that scared me. Desperation. "All right," I said. "You can stay." Jessica smiled a victorious smile she tried to disguise as gratitude. "Thank you, Margaret. You don't know how much this means to us." Margaret. She was already calling me by my first name without even being married. I let it slide, too focused on the worry in my son's eyes. I would regret that first concession. The first few days were tolerable. Jessica was friendly, helpful. She helped with the cleaning. She made breakfast. She asked if I needed anything from the supermarket. Michael spent his mornings sending out resumes and doing video interviews. In the afternoons, he would go out with Jessica to see the neighborhood, or they would lock themselves in their room. I tried to give them space. After all, they were a couple. They needed privacy. But then the changes began. Small at first, almost imperceptible. Jessica started reorganizing the kitchen. "It's just more practical this way, Margaret," she'd say as she moved my pots from their spot. She changed the curtains in the living room without asking me. The others were already very old, she justified. She brought in a new sofa she bought on sale and relegated my favorite armchair to the basement. "This one is more modern," she assured. Every time I protested, Michael intervened. "Mom, it's not a big deal. She's just trying to help." Help by erasing my presence from my own house. But I kept quiet because I didn't want to be that mother-in-law, the one who complains, the one who interferes, the one who makes drama over everything. So I swallowed my discomfort and smiled. The couple of months turned into 6, then a year and a half. Michael got sporadic freelance jobs, but nothing stable. Jessica kept looking, but never found anything that convinced her. And meanwhile, my house stopped being mine. Jessica invited friends over without telling me. They celebrated birthdays of people I didn't know in my living room. They used my good china, the one I only brought out for Christmas. They left dirty dishes in the sink for me to wash. When I asked them to contribute to the expenses, Michael would look at me with sad puppy eyes. "Mom, you know we're tight, as soon as things get better." But things never got better. And every day, Jessica behaved less like a guest and more like the owner. She started calling my house, our house, referring to my garden as our garden, my living room as our living room. When her friends asked, she'd say, "Yes, we live here. It's a family home." As if I were just a tenant in my own property. Michael seemed blind, or worse, he seemed to not want to see. One night I confronted him. It was 6 months ago after Jessica redecorated my dining room without even consulting me. "Son," I said when we were alone, "we need to talk." He sighed as if he already knew what was coming, as if he was tired of hearing it. "Mom, please don't start." "Start what? Defending what's mine, asking for a minimum of respect." "Jessica respects you," he said, but his voice sounded hollow, as if repeating something he had rehearsed. "She just wants the house to look good, to be a pleasant place for everyone." "It was pleasant before she arrived." Michael closed his eyes. "Mom, don't do this. Do what remind you that this house is mine, that you are here because of my generosity." "I know it's your house," he finally exploded. "You think I don't know? You think she doesn't remind me every single day how grateful I should be?" I froze. "Jessica doesn't remind you of anything." "She doesn't have to," he continued, his voice trembling. "She just acts, as if she has a right to be here. I know she doesn't because you. He ran his hands over his face. "Mom, I love her, and I need you to make an effort to get along with her." "I love her." Those 3 words explained everything. My son was so in love, so blinded that he couldn't see what I saw with crystal clarity. Jessica didn't love this house. She didn't love him either. She loved the security, the comfort, the free roof. But I couldn't tell him that. Because when you tell a man that the woman he loves is just using him, he doesn't listen to you. He just hates you. So I swallowed the words. I nodded. And I let him believe he had won. But that night, lying in my bed, I knew something had broken between my son and me. Something we might never be able to repair. And 3 months later, there I was sitting in a cafe downtown drinking a cold Americano, while remembering how I had gotten to this point, how I had allowed a stranger to enter my life and dismantle it piece by piece. How I had lost my son without even realizing the exact moment it happened. I paid the bill, I left the cafe, and as I walked to my car, I made a decision. I wasn't going to get my son back by arguing with him. I was going to get him back by showing him the truth. And for that, I needed evidence. Ants don't destroy a house in one day. They do it slowly, patiently, one crumb at a time, one piece of wood after another. Until one day you realize the foundations are hollow, and it's too late. That's how Jessica took my life from me. Not with one blow, with 1,000 small stings that seemed insignificant at first. I returned home that afternoon determined to observe, to document, to see with new eyes what I had been ignoring for months. And what I saw froze my blood. I entered through the front door, and the smell hit me first. It wasn't the usual scent, that mix of old wood and garden flowers that I loved so much. It was perfumey. A sweet, heavy perfume that saturated the air like toxic fog. Jessica had bought one of those electric diffusers and placed it in the entryway. "French vanilla," the label said. I hated vanilla. I walked to the kitchen. There she was, cooking something on the stove. When she saw me enter, her smile was instant. Too instant. "Margaret, good you're here. I made chicken and green salsa for lunch." My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten anything since the morning coffee. "That's nice," I said, approaching the stove. But then I saw the plates on the counter. 2 plates, only 2, served generously with fluffy white rice, fresh salad, hot tortillas in a basket. "And for me?" I asked in a casual voice. Jessica didn't even seem uncomfortable. "Oh, I didn't know what time you'd be back, Margaret. But there's more in the pot. Can you serve yourself?" Can you serve yourself, as if I were a guest arriving late to dinner. I went to the stove. The pot was almost empty. Only one small piece of chicken was left swimming in a thin sauce. No rice, no salad. The leftovers. She was giving me the leftovers in my own house. I didn't say anything. I served what was left on a plate, took a hard tortilla from the package on top of the refrigerator, not from the basket with the hot ones, and sat at the breakfast nook. Not in the dining room, because Jessica and Michael were already settled there, eating, laughing, talking about a series they were watching together. I ate alone in silence, looking out the window at the garden I had planted. The chicken was cold. That night I decided to stay awake. I waited until I heard the bedroom doors close, until the hallway lights went out, until the house was plunged into that deep midnight silence. Then I went downstairs barefoot like a thief in my own home and started looking. First the living room. The furniture Jessica had brought in wasn't on sale, as she had said. I checked the tag, still stuck to the bottom. Luxury department store. Each piece cost over $4,000. With what money had she bought them, if she was supposedly unemployed? I opened the drawers of the new cabinet. Invoices. Piles of invoices in the name of Jessica Taylor. Credit cards, 4 different ones, all with balances in the red. I took pictures with my cell phone. Every invoice, every bank statement I found hidden between magazines and papers. Jessica owed $32,000 on one card, $24,000 on another, $18,000 on the third, and $15,000 on the last one. $89,000 in debt. And I thought she had no money. I kept looking. In the study that used to be Robert's, now converted into Jessica's office, I found something else. Printed emails, conversations with a lawyer named Anderson dated 2 months ago. Dear Ms. Taylor, in response to your inquiry about obtaining power of attorney due to the owner's incapacity, I inform you that... My breath caught. Owner's incapacity. She was researching how to declare me incompetent, how to take away my legal control over my own property. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the papers. I photographed them all. Every line, every incriminating paragraph. There was more. A home appraisal done 3 weeks ago by a company I had not hired. $480,000, it said, and a handwritten note in the margin. Buyer interested, $30,000 deposit. $30,000 deposit. She had already sold my house, or at least she had already received money on account for a sale I had not authorized. I went back upstairs on trembling legs. I locked myself in my room. I connected my cell phone to the old laptop I had stored away and transferred all the photos. The evidence was there, clear, irrefutable, but a part of me still couldn't believe it. Still wanted to think that maybe I had misunderstood, that maybe Jessica had an explanation. How naive I was. The following days were a silent nightmare. I started noticing things I had ignored before, things I had convinced myself weren't a big deal. Like the way Jessica organized meetings at my house without telling me. Her friends would arrive in the afternoons. They would settle in the living room as if it were theirs. They drank my wine. They used my bathroom. They left lipstick stains on my crystal glasses. I protested once. Jessica, I would have liked you to tell me you were having visitors. She smiled with that fake sweetness I knew so well. Oh, Margaret, I thought you wouldn't mind. After all, you're in your room. We're not even bothering you. In my room, as if I were an old woman confined to a nursing home, or like the day I came home from grocery shopping and found my bedroom door locked from the outside. Why is my room locked? I asked with the grocery bag still in my hands. Jessica came out of the kitchen drying her hands. Oh, I was cleaning and didn't want the dust from the hallway to get in. It's open now. A lie. When I went in, everything was exactly as I had left it. She hadn't cleaned anything. She had been looking for something. Documents, probably. Deeds. I started keeping everything under lock and key. My passport, my important papers, the deeds to the house that I used to keep in the study. And then the worst part began, the dinners. Jessica started cooking elaborate meals for herself and Michael. Steak, fresh pasta, desserts. But for me, there was always an excuse. Oh, Margaret, I thought you already ate. I made just a little because Michael and I are on a diet. There's some of lunch left in the fridge. You can heat it up. Always leftovers. Always cold. Always alone. One night, Jessica and Michael had baked salmon with roasted potatoes and caprese salad. I ate a ham sandwich that I made myself sitting at the breakfast nook while they laughed and poured wine in the dining room. My dining room, my wine, my house. And me eating alone like a beggar. The worst part, Michael didn't even notice. Or he didn't want to notice. When her visitors came, Jessica had a perfect technique. The house is beautiful, her friends would say. Thank you, she would reply as if she had built it with her own hands. We've made a lot of improvements since we arrived. We've, as if they were the owners. And if I came downstairs while they had visitors, Jessica would look at me with a tense smile. Margaret, do you need something? We're in the middle of a meeting. As if I were interrupting. As if I had no right to be in my own living room. One afternoon, one of her friends asked me directly, and you are Michael's mother. Before I could answer, Jessica intervened with a syrupy voice. Yes, she lives here with us. She's getting on in years and needs company, right, Margaret? Lives here with us, as if they were the owners, as if I were the freeloader. I smiled, I nodded, and I went up to my room with my heart in pieces. That night, lying in my bed looking at the ceiling I had designed, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't sadness, it was rage. a deep ancient rage born from somewhere dark in my chest and spreading like fire through my veins. How had I allowed this? How had I let this woman enter my life and tear it apart piece by piece? How had I allowed her to treat me like trash in my own home? But the rage wasn't just against Jessica. It was against myself. For being a coward. For keeping quiet. For smiling when I should have screamed. For being the good mother-in-law when I should have been the owner of my own life. I got out of bed. I walked to the mirror. The woman looking back at me was 68 years old. Wrinkles around her eyes, gray hair peeking through the dye-age spots on her hands. But she also had something else. She had the look of someone who had built empires, who had raised houses with her own hands, who had survived losses that would have destroyed others. Enough, I told my reflection, and for the first time in 2 years, I felt that the woman in the mirror believed me. There are moments in life where everything changes in a second. A medical diagnosis, a call at midnight, a door that opens and reveals something you shouldn't see. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday morning, 3 days after finding Jessica's debts. Michael had left early for a job interview. Jessica was still sleeping, or so I thought. I went down to the kitchen to make coffee when I saw the envelope. It was on the dining room table, a large manila envelope with the logo of a notary's office printed in the corner. Notary Public 186, Mr. Harold Carty. The envelope was open. I should have left it there. I should have respected her privacy. I should have. But it was no longer time for should-haves. I took out the documents, and what I read took my breath away. It was a power of attorney form written in the name of Jessica Taylor, granting her broad and general powers to administer, sell mortgage, and perform any act of ownership over the property located at 47 Cedar Lane. My house. My address. But the most terrifying part wasn't that. It was the signature at the bottom of the document, a shaky, irregular signature that was supposedly mine. Only I had never signed that paper. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped the pages. There were more documents. A letter from the notary requesting the appearance of Mrs. Margaret Wilson to ratify the power granted dated 2 weeks ago, and a handwritten response supposedly in my handwriting saying, "For health reasons I cannot appear in person. I authorize my daughter-in-law Jessica Taylor to proceed on my behalf." My handwriting, or at least a near-perfect imitation of it. I felt the walls closing in on me. Jessica wasn't just planning to sell the house. She had already forged documents to do it legally. I photographed everything. Every page, every fake signature, every incriminating line. And then I found something else. A copy of my official ID. But it wasn't my current driver's license. It was an old one. One I had lost 2 years ago and reported missing. How had she gotten it? The answer hit me like a punch. She had been going through my trash, my drawers, my old documents stored in boxes in the basement. She had been planning this for months. The sound of footsteps upstairs paralyzed me. I quickly put everything back in the envelope and left it exactly as I had found it. I went upstairs trying to walk normally, although my heart was beating so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. I needed help. Real evidence. Because I wasn't just going to stop Jessica. I was going to expose her. I was going to take back not only my house, but my dignity. And the battle had just begun. That same afternoon, without telling anyone, I drove to David Blackwell's office. David had been my partner on 3 architectural projects 20 years ago. He was an architect, but also a lawyer specializing in real estate, a man of almost 70 with completely white hair and sharp blue eyes that missed no detail. When his secretary showed me in, David stood up immediately with a genuine smile. "Margaret, how many years has it been?" He embraced me with that authentic affection that only old friends can give. To what do I honor this unexpected visit? I sat down across from his desk, and then, unable to hold it in any longer, I broke down. I wept like I hadn't since Robert's funeral. I cried for the humiliation, for the betrayal, for the anger I'd suppressed for months. David let me cry. He said nothing, just passing me a box of tissues and waiting. When I could finally speak, I told him everything, every detail, every indignity, every document I'd found. I showed him the photographs on my phone. His expression transformed with each image from concern to disbelief, from disbelief to barely contained fury. "This is document forgery," he finally said, his voice grave. "Fraud, attempted theft. She could face prison time for this. Does Michael know about any of this?" I shook my head. I don't think so. He's completely blinded by her. David leaned back in his chair, studying me with the eyes of a man who'd seen too much in his career. Margaret, you need to act quickly. If she's already contacting notaries, if she already has forged documents, she's closer than you think to achieving her goal. What do I do? First, we're going to that notary's office. We need to talk to Mr. Carty and make it crystal clear that you've never granted any power of attorney. That will invalidate any process she tries to start. David paused, choosing his next words carefully. And after that, you need to decide how far you want to take this. Because this won't be fixed with a conversation. This is a legal battle, and your son is going to be caught in the middle. Those words hit my stomach like stones. My son, my only son. I need to think, I whispered. Think fast, David warned. Every day that passes gives her more time to complete her plan. I left his office with my head spinning. But before going home, I did one more thing. I drove to the notary's office number 186. It was a small building in a downtown office park, second-floor gold plaque on the door, Mr. Harold Carty Notary Public. I took a deep breath and went in. The receptionist greeted me with a professional smile. Good afternoon. How can I help you? I need to speak with Mr. Carty. It's urgent. It's about a power of attorney that I supposedly granted and have never signed. The smile vanished. One moment, please. She disappeared into an inner office. Minutes later, a man in his 50s emerged. Impeccable suit, serious expression. Mrs. Wilson, please come in. He led me to his office and closed the door. Tell me what's wrong. I explained everything. I showed him the photographs. I showed him my current ID. His face grew paler with each revelation. Ma'am, he said finally, I have never processed any power of attorney in your name. I have never received documents from you. I froze. But the logo on that envelope is from your office. Yes, but those documents are forgeries. Someone created them using my letterhead, my seal, my signature. All of it fake. The world stopped spinning for a moment. Are you sure? Completely. And this is extremely serious. Not only are they trying to steal your property, they're involving my notary office in a fraud. He stood up and began pacing. I need to file a formal complaint. And so do you, a complaint with the district attorney. This is a federal crime, Mrs. Wilson. Forgery of public documents, use of false official seals, attempted fraud. The person responsible could face between 4 and 12 years in prison. I felt dizzy. 12 years. Jessica could go to prison for 12 years. And Michael would be destroyed. I need time, I whispered, to talk to my son first. The notary looked at me with compassion. I understand, but don't take too long. These criminals don't usually stop at the first attempt. If this plan fails, they'll try another and another until they succeed. I left on trembling legs. I sat in my car for what felt like an eternity, unable to start it, unable to move. Jessica wasn't just an opportunist. She wasn't just a freeloader. She was a criminal, a professional delinquent who had chosen my family as her next target. And my son slept next to that woman every night, with no idea who she really was. I started the car. I drove back home on autopilot. When I arrived, the house was quiet. I went straight to my room, locked the door, and picked up my phone. I dialed David's number. David, my voice barely a whisper, I need you to do something else. I need you to investigate Jessica Taylor, everything about her. Where she comes from, what she's done before if she has a record. I suspect this isn't her first time. I suspect my son and I are just her latest victims. There was a pause on the other end. I'll do it. I have a contact who can help us. But Margaret, be prepared for what we might find. I'm already prepared. I lied because in reality I had no idea what I was about to discover or how deep the abyss was that Jessica had dragged my family into. 3 days later, David called me. Margaret, I need you to come to my office now. His voice sounded tense, almost urgent. Did you find something? Not over the phone. Come now. He hung up before I could answer. I told Jessica I was going to the doctor. She barely looked up from her cell phone. Have a good time, Margaret. The drive to David's office felt eternal. Every red light, every turn, every minute seemed to crawl by like molasses. When I finally arrived, David was waiting for me at the entrance. His expression was grim, grimmer than I had ever seen it. Sit down, he said, closing his office door behind us. On his desk was a thick manila folder bulging with documents. My contact is a private investigator, David began. I gave him Jessica Taylor's full name and asked him to check everything: criminal record, credit history, social media, everything. He was quiet for a moment, as if deciding how to deliver what was coming. David, you're scaring me. You should be scared. He opened the folder. Margaret Jessica Taylor is not who she says she is. My heart stopped. What do you mean? To begin with, he continued pulling out documents. Her full name is Jessica Taylor, 34 years old, born in Houston. But there's something your son definitely doesn't know. He put a document in front of me, a marriage certificate. Jessica is married, legally married to a man named Javier Martinez for 8 years. They never got divorced. The marriage is still valid. I read the certificate with trembling hands. There was her name, her signature. Date March 14th, 2017. That means, my voice broke, that her relationship with Michael is legally invalid. If they got married tomorrow, it would be bigamy, a crime. David pulled out more papers. But there's more, much more. He showed me a police report. Houston, Texas, 2019. Jessica was reported by a woman named Patricia Oswald. The accusation: fraud and theft. Jessica was living with Patricia's son, convinced the family she needed help, and over the course of 6 months, she tried to take ownership of a family property valued at $300,000. I felt sick to my stomach. What happened? The complaint was withdrawn because they reached an out-of-court settlement. The family paid her $20,000 to leave and never come back. David moved to another document. But it didn't end there. In 2021 in Phoenix, another complaint, this time from a 60-year-old man named Michael Torres. Jessica became his girlfriend, moved into his house, and in less than a year, she had emptied his bank account. $40,000. More papers, more complaints, more victims. In 2022, in Denver, an entire family. She convinced them she was a real estate agent. Got $35,000 from them as a deposit for a house that never existed. Each document was a hammer blow to my chest. And now she's here, David finished. In your house with your son, following the same pattern she has used for years. I couldn't breathe. Literally, I couldn't get air into my lungs. Michael was all I could say. Michael is with a professional con artist, a predator who chooses vulnerable victims and bleeds them dry. David leaned forward. Margaret, this woman is dangerous. She's not just trying to steal your house. This is what she does. It's her way of life. And the husband, Javier Martinez, what about him? We tracked him down. He lives in Houston, works as a mechanic. When my investigator spoke with him, he told us Jessica disappeared 3 years ago without a word. She took money, jewelry, documents. He looked for her for months, but eventually gave up. He never filed for divorce because, in his words, why waste money on lawyers for someone I hope I never see again? David put a photograph on the desk, a man in his 40s, tanned in mechanic's overalls, standing in front of a workshop. He's willing to testify if necessary to confirm that their marriage is still valid. I leaned back in the chair, feeling like my whole body weighed tons. I need to tell Michael. Margaret, think carefully. When you tell your son this, his world is going to collapse. You need to be prepared for that. And what am I supposed to do? Let that woman keep manipulating him. Let her finish ruining him. No, but you need a plan. Because when Jessica finds out you've discovered her, she could become dangerous. She already is. David nodded. That's why we must act intelligently with strategy. He closed the folder. I'm going to prepare all the legal documentation. We're going to file a formal complaint: forgery, fraud, attempted theft. But in the meantime, you need to stay calm at home. Don't let her suspect. I don't know if I can. You have to. Because if she gets scared, if she thinks she's cornered, we don't know what she's capable of. I left that office with the folder under my arm, feeling like I was carrying not paper, but liquid lead. I drove home in a daze. My mind replayed the images of all those complaints, all those victims, all those destroyed families. And now it was us. When I arrived, the house was silent. Too silent. I went upstairs, and that's when I heard voices coming from Michael and Jessica's room, arguing. I approached without making a sound. The door was slightly open. You can't keep doing this, Michael, Jessica said in a frustrated voice. Your mother is suffocating us. Don't start. Please don't start. We live in her house. We eat her food. Everything is hers. Until when are we going to depend on her for the rest of our lives? I'm looking for work, Jessica. I just had an interview last week. And in the meantime, what? We just stay here like two freeloaders, like we're teenagers living with mommy. There was a silence. What do you want me to do? I want you to be a man, Michael. I want you to set boundaries. Tell her that this house can be ours if she deeds it to us. It's going to be yours anyway when she's gone. He didn't say it, but there it was. The plan laid bare. I'm not asking her for that, Michael replied. Then we're never going to have anything of our own. We're never going to be independent. A pause. Sometimes I think you love your mother more than you love me. Don't say that. It's the truth. You always defend her. You always take her side. What about us, Michael? What about our future? I couldn't listen anymore. I backed away silently. I went into my room. I locked the door. I sat on the edge of the bed with the folder of evidence clutched to my chest. And then something inside me finally broke. It wasn't a dramatic break. It was silent, like the sound of a branch snapping under too much weight. For 2 years I had put up with it. I had kept quiet. I had been understanding. I had allowed them to treat me like a burden in my own home because I didn't want to be the difficult mother-in-law, because I didn't want to lose my son. But I had already lost him. I had lost him the day he chose to believe her instead of me. I had lost him the day he saw me eat alone at the breakfast nook and said nothing. I had lost him the day he let her call me Margaret with that condescending tone and he just smiled. I opened the folder again. I looked at all those complaints, all those victims, and I made a decision. I was not going to be one more victim on Jessica's list. I was not going to end up like those people, stripped, humiliated, destroyed. If Jessica wanted a war, she was going to get a war, but it would be on my terms in my battlefield. And she had no idea who she had messed with. Because I was Margaret Wilson, the woman who built a house with her own hands, the woman who survived the death of her husband, the woman who raised her son alone. And women like me don't give up. We rise. That night I didn't go down to dinner. I stayed in my room planning every move, every step, every play. Because Jessica was about to discover something that none of her other victims had taught her, that old lionesses are the most dangerous of all. The next morning I went down to breakfast with a smile. A smile it took me 20 minutes to practice in front of the mirror, but I needed it to be perfect, believable. Jessica looked up from her cell phone when I entered the kitchen. Her eyes scanned me with suspicion. "Good morning," I said in a cheerful voice, too cheerful for someone who had spent the night without sleeping. "Good morning, Margaret." Her reply was cautious. I poured myself coffee. I sat at the table and then I dropped the bomb I had prepared. "I've been thinking," I said, stirring my sugar slowly, "about what you said the other day about the house." Jessica tensed immediately. "I didn't mean to offend you, Margaret." "You didn't offend me. You were right." I took a sip of coffee. "This house is too big for me alone, and you two have been here for 2 years. Maybe it's time to make some changes." Jessica's eyes lit up like a shark smelling blood. "Changes? I'm old Jessica, tired. At my age, maintaining a property this size is exhausting." I sighed dramatically. Maybe it would be good to consider selling or doing something different with it. I could see the wheels turning in her head, the calculations, the possibilities. "Well," she said, trying to sound casual, "if you need help with that, Michael and I can support you. Look at options, talk to agents." "Yes, maybe." I left my cup on the table. "But I don't want to rush. I need to think it through." I stood up, leaving her with the doubt. With the hook set but not fully bitten. Perfect. That same afternoon, while Jessica was out with her friends and Michael was at another interview, I made my real move. I called David. "I need you to investigate something else," I told him. "I want to know exactly how much money Jessica has spent in the last 2 years. Every big purchase, every payment, everything." "Why?" "Because if she's in debt for almost $90,000, that money came from somewhere and I want to know where." David was silent for a moment. "You think she's stealing from you?" "I think I need to know." 2 days later, I had my answer. David came to my house on a Thursday afternoon when he knew I'd be alone. He brought another folder with him. This one was thinner, but just as devastating. "We found movements on Jessica's credit cards that correspond with specific dates," he said, showing me statements. "Look at these purchases: furniture for $4, 200 clothes for $2,300, a TV for $500, jewelry for $1,800. Everything she's brought into this house." "Exactly. But here's the interesting part." He pointed to specific dates. "These payments were made 1 or 2 days after you made cash withdrawals from your account." I froze. "How do you know when I make withdrawals?" Because my investigator spoke with your bank manager. Since it's a matter of possible fraud, he agreed to review your history, and we found a pattern. He showed me a list. Dates of withdrawals from my account and dates of Jessica's purchases almost always 1 or 2 days apart. Margaret, where do you keep your cash? My blood ran cold. In a safe box in my closet. Does Jessica know where it is? I don't think so. It's hidden behind some boxes. David looked at me with those eyes I already knew. The ones that said, "You're in more trouble than you think." Check it now. We went up to my room together. I opened the closet. I moved the boxes. I took out the metal safe box I had bought years ago. I opened it with the key I always carried in my wallet. Inside there should have been $15,000, my life savings, money I kept for emergencies. I counted the bills with trembling hands. 7 on $300. 7 700s were missing. It can't be, I whispered. I locked it. I always lock it. David picked up the safe box. He examined it closely and then pointed to the tiny marks around the lock. It was forced probably with a pick or a thin tool, and then they closed it again so you wouldn't notice. I sat on the bed. My legs wouldn't support me anymore. She's robbing me, I said out loud. She's not just planning to sell the house. She's stealing my money directly. Yes, and this is enough to add theft to the charges. David sat next to me. Margaret, we already have evidence of everything: document forgery, attempted fraud, theft. It's time to act. Not yet. He looked at me surprised. What yet? Not yet, I repeated, feeling something inside me hardening like steel. Because if I report her now, she'll say she knew nothing, that it was a misunderstanding, that I gave her permission. She'll cry, she'll play the victim, and Michael will defend her. Then what do you propose? I propose we give her more rope. Let her believe her plan is working. And when she's at her most confident, when she thinks she's already won, I paused. Then we close the trap. David studied me for a long moment. Are you sure completely? This requires you to act to pretend to play along. I know. And you have to be willing for Michael to see things that are going to break him. That sentence hurt, but I nodded. It's the only way he'll see the truth. David took out his phone. All right then, let's do it right. My investigator is going to install hidden security cameras in your house. Cameras, tiny ones in strategic places, living room, kitchen, your bedroom. We're going to record Jessica's every move, every conversation, every attempt at theft or manipulation. Is that legal? In your own home, recording someone who is committing crimes against you, completely legal, and it will be irrefutable evidence. I stood up. I walked to the window. From there, I could see the garden where Robert and I had planted the lemon tree when Michael was born. That tree was huge now, its branches shading half the garden. Do it, I said without turning. Install the cameras, record everything. And what are you going to do? I turned to him. I'm going to give her the greatest gift a con artist can receive. What gift? A seemingly weak victim who is about to make a huge mistake. The next few days were pure acting. I became the confused old woman Jessica had always wanted me to be. I started to forget things, names, dates, where I left my keys. Oh, I forget everything, I'd say with a nervous chuckle when Jessica looked at me. I watched her mentally note every lapse. I started leaving documents accidentally on my desk, bank papers, statements, the old will where I left everything to Michael. One afternoon, I heard her enter my room while I was in the garden. The cameras David had installed recorded everything. That night, I reviewed the recording on my laptop. There was Jessica entering my room, looking through my drawers, photographing my documents with her cell phone. I felt disgusted but also satisfied because every second of that video was evidence. I continued my performance. I started making comments about how tired I was of dealing with paperwork and red tape. Oh, Jessica, I told her one afternoon while she pretended to help me organize documents. Sometimes I think I should just give general power of attorney to Michael so he can handle everything. I'm too old for this stuff. Her eyes lit up. That's not a bad idea, Margaret. That way you can stop worrying. Yes, maybe. I left the sentence hanging. That same day, the camera in the living room recorded a conversation between Jessica and someone on the phone. Yes, the old woman is caving. Give her 1 more week and I'll have the power of attorney. No, the son is useless. He does what I tell him. $480,000. I already told you. Yes, same plan as in Denver, but this time it won't fail. David was right. This was what she did. Her perfected modus operandi. But there was something else I needed to know. something that bothered me like a thorn in my side. David, I told him on the phone that night, I need you to investigate one more thing. Name it. Jessica's husband, Javier Martinez. I want you to go see him personally. Show him pictures of Michael. I want to know if Jessica has told him about us. Why? Because I have a hunch. 3 days later, David returned with information that left me speechless. I spoke with Javier Martinez, he said. I showed him pictures of Michael. And you know what he told me? I shook my head. That Jessica contacted him 2 months ago. She asked to borrow money, $5,000. She told him she had an investment opportunity. Did he give it to her? No, but he told me something more interesting. Jessica made fun of Michael. What do you mean? She told him verbatim that she had found a fool with his own house and an old woman who's on her last legs, that in a few months she'd have enough money to disappear again. I felt as if I had been punched in the stomach. Not for me, I already knew who Jessica was. But for Michael, my son, the man who was working 18 hours a day sending resumes, who was up at night worrying about his future, who loved that woman with every fiber of his being. He was just a fool to her, a tool, a means to an end. Javier is willing to testify, David continued, to testify about everything Jessica told him and to confirm their marriage is still valid. Good, I said, my voice colder than it had ever sounded, because it's almost time. Time for what? To close the trap. That night I sat in front of my laptop and reviewed everything we had collected. Videos of Jessica stealing from me. Videos of her phone conversations planning the fraud. Forged documents. Evidence of her valid marriage. Testimonies from previous victims. Statements from the notary. Bank statements. It was enough, more than enough. But something was missing. The perfect moment was missing. The final blow that would make everything fall like dominoes. And then I had an idea. An idea that David called risky and potentially explosive, but I called it poetic justice. The plan was simple in theory, brutal in execution. I was going to give Jessica exactly what she wanted, a weak, confused victim ready to be manipulated to the end. And then when she thought she had won, I was going to show her who had been playing whom all along. But for it to work, I needed to act better than ever. David, I said when we met at a cafe far from my house, I need you to contact the buyer that Mr. Hernandez that Jessica brought to the house. Why? To tell him that the owner is interested in selling, that he should contact Jessica directly to coordinate a second visit. David frowned. You're going to give her more ammunition. I'm going to give her all the rope in the world, and when she is completely tangled in it, I'm going to pull. He understood immediately. A slow smile spread across his face. You're more cunning than I remembered, Margaret. Life taught me to be. Mr. Hernandez contacted Jessica 2 days later. I heard the whole conversation from my room thanks to the hidden cameras. Ms. Taylor, Mr. Blackwell contacted me. He told me the owner is ready to move forward with the sale. Jessica's voice was practically singing with excitement. Yes, that's right. My mother-in-law finally understood that it's for the best. Perfect. Could we coordinate a second visit? This time I'd like to bring my architect to check the structures. Of course, how about next Friday in the afternoon when my mother-in-law is more rested? Code for when she's more confused. Excellent. See you Friday at 4. When Jessica hung up, I heard her scream with excitement. Then she dialed another number. Babe, it worked. The buyer wants to see the house again. No, your mom completely agrees. I'm telling you, she's caving. I just need you to convince her too. Okay, talk nicely to her. Tell her it's for our own good. My son. My own son being used as the final tool of manipulation. That hurt more than anything else. That night, Michael came into my room. He knocked softly before entering. Mom, can I talk to you? Of course, son. Sit down. He sat on the edge of my bed with that slumped posture he had when something was bothering him. Jessica told me you're considering selling the house. Ah, yes. I sighed dramatically. I'm tired, Michael. This house is too much for me, and you two need to start your lives. Mom, you don't have to do this for us. But I want to. I took his hand. It was cold. You're my only son. I want to see you happy established, and if selling this house gives you and Jessica the chance to start fresh. I saw the conflict in his eyes. Part of him knew this was wrong. But another part, the part that loved Jessica, the part that wanted to believe her, was winning the battle. Are you sure, Mom? Completely. A lie. Just promise me something. Anything. That you'll take care of the money. that you won't waste it, that you'll build something good with it. Michael hugged me. I promise, Mom. I promise we'll do this right. When he left my room, I had to bite my lip until it bled to keep from crying, because my son, my good naive son, had no idea he was being the final piece of the fraud. The next few days were pure theater. I started acting as if I were in the early stages of dementia. I got confused in conversations, forgot names, repeated questions. One afternoon, while Jessica and I were alone in the kitchen, I dropped the perfect bomb. "Jessica," I said with a shaky voice, "I need you to help me with something." "Of course, Margaret. Tell me." "It's just, there's so much paperwork, so many things to sign. The bank called me yesterday and I didn't understand anything they said." I put my hand to my head. Sometimes I feel like my head just doesn't work like it used to. Jessica approached with that false compassion she had perfected. "Don't worry, Margaret. That's what Michael and I are here for, to help you." "Really?" I looked at her with teary eyes. "Because I've been thinking. Maybe I should give you power of attorney so you can handle things. You're younger. You understand all this modern stuff better." Jessica's eyes lit up as if it were Christmas. "If you think it's necessary, Margaret, I'll gladly support you. I just don't want to be a burden." "You could never be a burden." She took my hands, cold, calculating hands. "Let me help you. We'll go to the notary's office together. We'll get everything settled with legal papers so you can rest easy." "You do that for me?" "Of course, Margaret. We're family." Family. The word tasted like poison in my mouth. "Then we'll go tomorrow." I said, "We'll get everything settled." That night I called David. "She's going to try to take me to a notary tomorrow." "Which one?" "I don't know, but I bet it won't be a real one. Or it'll be some corrupt notary who works with her." "Are you going to go?" "I'm going to go. And you are going to follow us." "Margaret, this is dangerous." "I know, but I need evidence of her trying to complete the fraud. I need it recorded, documented, and irrefutable." There was a pause. "All right, but you're going to wear a hidden recorder and I'll be half a block away at all times." The next morning, Jessica was radiant. "Margaret, so good you're awake. I already made an appointment at the notary's office for 11. "So quickly." "It's just that the notary is very in demand. We were lucky he had an opening." "Of course, because he probably wasn't a real notary." I got dressed slowly, acting out every movement as if it were difficult. David had given me a small device that looked like a decorative brooch, but was actually a camera and audio recorder. "Do I look okay?" I asked Jessica, pointing to the brooch on my blouse. "You look beautiful, Margaret." She had no idea she was recording her own conviction. We got into Jessica's car, a red compact she had bought on sale months ago. She drove with that smile of a cat that just caught a mouse. "You'll see, Margaret. After today, everything will be easier. You won't have to worry about anything anymore." "Thank you, dear." I used that word intentionally. "I don't know what I'd do without you." The notary's office was in a neighborhood I didn't recognize. An old building with peeling paint. Nothing like the professional notary offices I knew. We went up to the second floor. The plaque on the door said Mr. Allen Morris, Notary Public 243. We entered a small, poorly lit office with that musty smell of places that aren't maintained. A man in his 50s, paunchy in a cheap suit, greeted us with an oily smile. "Mrs. Wilson, what a pleasure. Come in, come in." He pointed to a chair in front of his desk. Jessica sat next to me, taking my arm as if I were a child who needed guidance. "Well," the supposed notary began, "I understand you wish to grant a general power of attorney to Miss Taylor." "That's right," I said in a weak voice. "I'm just so tired. I need help." "Perfect. I have the document ready right here." He pulled out some papers. "I just need you to read it and sign." He passed me the document. I began to read it slowly, squinting as if I was having trouble. It was exactly what I expected, a sweeping power of attorney that gave Jessica total control over all my assets to sell, mortgage, dispose of everything. "Is it ready already?" I asked in a confused voice. "But we just got here." "Ms. Taylor sent me all the information in advance," the fake notary explained, "to speed up the process. You know, at your age, it's better not to tire you with so much running around." "At my age. Very considerate." "Very considerate," I murmured. Jessica squeezed my arm. "Sign here, Margaret, and here and here." I picked up the pen. I moved it toward the paper, and then I stopped. "You know what?" I said, putting the pen down on the desk. "I think I'd better think about this a little more." The atmosphere in the office changed immediately. "Excuse me," Jessica said in a tense voice. It's a very big decision. Maybe I should discuss it with Michael first." "But you already spoke with Michael, Margaret. He agrees." "Oh, did I? When did I talk to him?" I feigned confusion. "I don't remember. Last night, Margaret, did you already forget?" Her voice was starting to sound irritated. The fake notary intervened. "Mrs. Wilson, I recommend you sign today. These procedures are complicated to reschedule." "But I'm just not sure." I put my hands to my head. "My head is all confused today. Maybe another day." "No!" Jessica almost shouted. She composed herself immediately. "I mean, Margaret, we're already here. The notary did us the favor of seeing us. Just take the pen and sign. It's for your own good." "For my good?" I looked her directly in the eyes, and for the first time in weeks, I let her see something real in my gaze, something hard, something dangerous. "Or for yours." She turned pale. The fake notary tried to intervene again, but I was already on my feet. "You know what, I think I'd better go. I don't feel well." "Margaret, wait." "I'm leaving," I said. Day said. My voice came out firmer than it had sounded in weeks. I walked to the door. Jessica followed me, trying to stop me, but I was already in the hallway. I went down the stairs as fast as I could. I heard Jessica behind me calling my name, but I didn't stop. I went out to the street, and there was David waiting for me in his car half a block away, exactly as we had planned. I got in quickly. "Drive." He obeyed without asking questions. I looked in the side mirror. Jessica had come out to the street looking for me, her cell phone in her hand with that expression of poorly disguised panic. "Did you record everything?" David asked. I touched the brooch on my blouse. "Every word." "Then it's almost time." "Yes," I said, feeling my heartbeat strong but steady. It's almost time for Jessica to meet the real Margaret Wilson. 3 days passed. 3 days in which Jessica tried to act as if nothing had happened. 3 days of forced smiles and questions disguised as concern. "Margaret, are you feeling okay? You seemed very upset at the notary's office that day." "I'm perfectly fine," I'd reply in a neutral voice that revealed nothing. I gave her no explanations. I gave her no peace. I just gave her silence. And silence, I discovered, was the most powerful weapon of all. I watched her squirm. I watched her mind work trying to understand what had gone wrong, if I suspected something, if she should change her strategy. But she didn't know it was already too late. On Wednesday afternoon, while Jessica was in the living room talking on the phone in a low voice, I was in my room coordinating the final move. My phone pressed against my ear. I whispered to David, "It's time. Arrange the dinner for Friday." "Are you completely sure there's no turning back after this?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "All right, I'll contact everyone involved. Did Javier Martinez confirm?" "He confirmed. He's coming from Houston. And Mr. Hernandez also confirmed, although he's still confused about why you're inviting him. He'll understand on Friday." "And Michael, have you told him?" That question stung like salt in an open wound. "No, he's going to find out along with everyone else. I need him to see everything at the same time. It's the only way." There was a pause on the line. "It's going to hurt Margaret." "I know, but the pain of a truth is better than the comfort of a lie." On Thursday night during dinner, I dropped the final bait. "Jessica, Michael, I want to host a family dinner on Friday." They both looked at me surprised. "A dinner?" Michael asked. "Yes, I've been thinking a lot these past few days, and I think it's time to resolve some things to talk about the future with clarity." I looked at both of them. "I want us to invite some important people to make decisions together as a family." Jessica immediately got her smile back. "That sounds perfect, Margaret. Who do you want to invite?" "My lawyer, David Blackwell, Mr. Hernandez, that buyer you brought the notary who will advise us on the paperwork." I paused. "And some other people who I think should be present." "Other people." Jessica's eyebrows rose in question. "Yes, I've already contacted them. Everyone confirmed." Michael frowned. "Mom, who else?" "It's a surprise." I smiled. "But I promise you everything will be very clear on Friday." Jessica tried to hide her unease, but I saw that shadow of doubt crossing her face. "Sounds good," she finally said. "Excellent. Dinner will be at 7. Dress well. It's going to be a memorable night." She had no idea how memorable it would be. Friday dawned with a clear sky. Ironic considering the storm that was about to break. I spent the morning cooking. I made dishes that Robert loved, the ones I prepared for special occasions. Jessica watched me from the kitchen doorway with a confused expression. "Do you need help, Margaret?" "No, thank you. I want to do it myself today." I concentrated on slicing vegetables. I like to cook. It reminds me of better times. At 5 in the afternoon, I began to set the dining room. I took out the good china, the silver cutlery, the crystal glasses. The table looked beautiful, elegant, dignified, like a stage set for a decisive play. At 6, I took a long bath. I put on a navy blue dress I hadn't worn since Robert's funeral. I did my makeup carefully. I styled my hair in an elegant bun. When I came downstairs, Michael looked at me amazed. "Mom, you look beautiful." "Thank you, son." I kissed his cheek. "Today is an important day." Jessica came down minutes later. A tight red dress, high heels, too much makeup. She looked exactly like what she was, a desperate woman trying to impress. At 7:00 sharp, the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," I said. It was David, impeccable suit, briefcase in hand, serious expression. "David," I kissed his cheek. Ready. We entered the dining room. Jessica and Michael were already seated. "Jessica, Michael, you know Mr. Blackwell." They both greeted him with tense politeness. The doorbell rang again. It was Mr. Hernandez. He looked confused but polite. "Mrs. Wilson, thank you for the invitation, although I'm not sure I understand." "Everything will be clear, Mr. Hernandez. Please come in." I sat him at the table. Jessica watched him with a wary expression. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Mr. Carty, the real notary. "Mr. Carty, thank you for coming." "Mrs. Wilson, when you explained the situation, I couldn't refuse." Jessica had turned considerably pale. "Mom," Michael said. "What is going on?" "Patient son." And then the guest, no one expected, arrived. I answered the doorbell myself this time. And when I opened the door there, he was Javier Martinez, Jessica's legal husband, a man of 42, tanned face marked by sun and hard work. He was wearing clean jeans and a dress shirt. He had dressed up for the occasion. "Mrs. Wilson," he said in a respectful voice. "Javier, thank you for coming all this way." "It's the least I can do." I led him to the dining room, and when Jessica saw him, the color completely drained from her face. "Javi," she whispered. Michael looked between them, confused. "Who is this man, Mom?" "Michael," I said in a firm voice. "I'd like you to meet Javier Martinez, Jessica's husband." The silence that followed was absolute. What? Michael's voice came out as a squeak. Jessica shot up. "This is a misunderstanding. I can explain." "Sit down." My voice cut through the air like a whip. Something in my tone made her obey. I stood at the head of the table. Everyone was looking at me, but I only had eyes for Jessica. This woman who had entered my house under false pretenses, who had manipulated my son, who had tried to steal everything I had built. "This dinner is about the truth," I began. "A truth that has been buried under lies for 2 years." "Mom, what are you talking about?" Michael looked completely lost. "Let me show you, son." I nodded to David. He took his laptop from his briefcase and placed it on the table. He connected it to a small portable projector aimed at the white dining room wall. "We're going to watch a movie," I said. "The movie of how Jessica Taylor has been destroying our family." I pressed play. The first image that appeared was a marriage certificate. Jessica and Javier's. Date March 14, 2017. "Jessica is legally married," I said. "She never got divorced. Your relationship with her, Michael, is legally invalid. You are the lover, not the partner." Michael stared at the screen as if he had been hit in the head. The next image, bank statements, Jessica's debts, $89,000. "This is why she is here. Not for love, for money." Then the recorded phone conversations. Jessica's voice saying, "The old woman is caving," and "Same plan as in Denver." Next, the videos of her entering my room, searching my drawers, photographing my documents, stealing from my safe box. She stole 7/700 of my savings. And finally, the forged documents. The power of attorney with my imitated signature, the fake letter to the notary. She tried to steal my house using forged documents. Signature forgery, fraud, theft. Every image was a blow. Every document a stab. Michael had stopped breathing. Literally. He was frozen, his eyes fixed on the wall, watching his reality crumble piece by piece. Jessica tried to get up, but Mr. Carty spoke. "Miss Taylor, I recommend you remain seated." I have already filed a formal complaint with the district attorney. There is an arrest warrant in process. She collapsed into her chair. No, was all she could say. I turned to Javier. Mr. Martinez, could you please tell us what Jessica told you when she contacted you 2 months ago? Javier nodded, looking at Jessica with a mixture of pity and contempt. She told me she had found a fool with his own house and an old woman who's on her last legs, that soon she'd have enough money to disappear again. She asked me to lend her $5,000 to speed up the plan. Michael made a sound something between a sob and a choked scream. Jessica. He reached out to her, but then recoiled as if her touch burned. Don't touch me. No, don't you dare touch me. I turned to Mr. Hernandez, who was watching everything with wide eyes. Mr. Hernandez, you were contacted by this woman to buy a property she has no right to sell. The $30,000 you gave as a deposit were stolen. David will help you recover it and file your own complaint. The engineer nodded mechanically, still in shock. Finally, I turned to Jessica. She was crying, tears streaming down her perfect makeup, creating black streaks on her cheeks. Please, she begged. I can explain everything. There is nothing to explain. My voice was ice. You are a professional con artist, a criminal who has destroyed entire families, and you thought I would be your next victim. Margaret, please. Do not call me Margaret. Every word was venomous. You are not family. You never were. You are a predator who saw weakness and attacked. But you made one mistake. What? Her chin quivered. You assumed that because I am 68 years old, I was finished, that I was weak, helpless, that you could manipulate me and destroy me without consequences. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You were wrong because I built this house with my own hands. I survived things that would have broken you into 1,000 pieces, and I was not going to let a low-life criminal take everything I fought for. I straightened up. David, call the authorities. No, Jessica stood up abruptly. Michael, say something. Defend me. All eyes turned to my son. Michael was sitting with his hands on the table, staring at them as if they weren't his. His eyes were red. His face shattered. When he spoke, his voice was broken. Completely broken. Was any of it ever true? Jessica opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I did love you. Liar. The word lashed out. It was all a lie from the beginning. He stood up slowly. He walked toward her, and for a moment I thought he was going to hug her, to forgive her to be the weak man she thought he was. But instead he stopped in front of her and said the only thing that mattered, I want you out of this house now. Michael? Now. The shout echoed in the dining room. Jessica stumbled back, tripping over her chair. She looked around for support, but only found hard, accusing stares. You have no right, she began. But then the authorities arrived. 2 officers from the DA's office, a man and a woman. They had the warrant. Jessica Taylor, she nodded weakly. You are under arrest for document forgery, fraud, and theft. You have the right to remain silent. They handcuffed her right there in my dining room on the hardwood floor I had laid with my own hands. As they took her away, she looked at me one last time. There was no pleading in her eyes, just pure hatred. This isn't over, she hissed. For you it is, I replied. It ended for you the day you decided Margaret Wilson was an easy victim. They took her away. The door closed, and the silence that remained was deafening. After everyone left the house, fell silent, a different silence than before. This one wasn't filled with tension or manipulation. It was an empty, hollow silence. Michael was still sitting in the dining room. He hadn't moved since they took Jessica. He just stared at his hands on the table, as if looking for answers in the lines of his palms. I sat down across from him. Son, don't. His voice was sharp. I waited. The minutes passed like hours. Finally, he looked up. His eyes were red, swollen. How long did you know? Weeks. David investigated everything after I found the forged documents. And you didn't tell me anything. You needed to see it for yourself. If I had just told you, you wouldn't have believed me. He ran his hands over his face. You're right. I wouldn't have believed you. I would have defended her. A bitter laugh escaped his throat. What kind of idiot am I? You're not an idiot. You were manipulated by a professional. I lived with her for 2 years, Mom. I slept next to her. I told her I loved her. His voice broke. How did I not see anything? Because love blinds us, and she was very good at what she did. Michael shook his head. I treated you badly. I let her treat you badly. I saw you eat alone and said nothing. I saw how she disrespected you, and—" His voice broke. "How can you even look at me?" I stood up. I walked around the table. I knelt by his chair and took his face in my hands. "Because you are my son, and children make mistakes, but they also learn from them. I don't deserve your forgiveness. It's not something you deserve. It's something I give because I love you." I wiped a tear from his cheek. "But I need you to understand something, Michael. This can never happen again. I need you to learn to value what you have, to respect the person who has given you everything." He nodded, crying like I hadn't seen him cry since he was a child. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." "I know, son. I know." I hugged him. And in that hug, I felt everything: the pain, the betrayal, the forgiveness, the hope. "I'm going to make it up to you," he said against my shoulder. "I don't know how, but I will." "I know how." I pulled away from him. "You're going to move out." He froze. "What?" I took an envelope from my pocket. I had prepared it days ago. "Years ago, I bought a small apartment and investment. It's in a good neighborhood, 2 bedrooms, well located." I put the envelope in front of him. "It's yours, but with conditions." "Mom, I can't accept this." "Condition 1. You are going to live alone. You are going to learn who you are without depending on anyone. Not me, and not any woman." He swallowed. He nodded. "Condition 2. You are going to work. I don't care what it is, but you are going to support yourself with your own effort." "I will." "Condition 3. Every Sunday you come here for dinner, and we are going to rebuild what was broken as mother and son, as a real family." His eyes filled with tears again. "Why are you doing this after everything?" "Because you are my son and I believe in second chances." I stood up. "But this is your only chance, Michael. There won't be a third." He took the envelope with trembling hands. He opened it. He saw the deed. "Thank you, Mom. I swear I won't let you down. More importantly, don't let yourself down." He stayed that night, his last night in this house as a resident. The next morning he packed his things. It wasn't much a suitcase, a few boxes. At the door he hugged me tight. "I love you, Mom. And I love you, son. Always." He left and I closed the door, knowing that for the first time in 2 years, my house was truly mine again. The following months brought peace. Jessica was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Forgery, fraud, theft. Her history of previous victims weighed heavily in the sentencing. Mr. Hernandez got his money back. He even thanked me for exposing her. Javier Martinez finally filed for divorce. And I renovated my house. Not the structure, but the soul of it. I painted walls, changed furniture. I removed every trace of Jessica. I turned the study into a small architecture workshop. I started giving free classes to older women who wanted to learn design. Michael kept his word. Every Sunday he arrived with flowers or sweet bread. We ate together. We talked, really talked. Slowly, very slowly, we rebuilt what had been broken. Today, as I sit in my garden looking at the lemon tree that Robert and I planted 43 years ago, I understand something fundamental. True wealth is not in what you possess. It is in what you do not allow to be taken from you: your dignity, your peace, your home, your soul. Jessica tried to take everything from me, but she forgot something essential. Women like me are not built on easy days. We are forged in storms, and when the storm passes, we are still standing stronger than before. The wisdom that comes with age isn't weakness, it's perspective. It's the ability to see the trap before it's sprung, to recognize the wolf beneath the sheep's clothing. It's knowing when to speak and when silence is the deadliest weapon. It's understanding that our greatest power often lies not in how we fight back, but in how we choose our battles. These hands that built a house can also rebuild a broken family. These eyes that chose every detail of a home can also see through deception. This heart that endured loss can also find forgiveness, not because it's earned, but because bitterness is a prison of our own making. As I watch Michael's car pull into the driveway for our Sunday dinner, I smile. He has found a job. He has found himself. And in losing what he thought was love, he found something more valuable: truth. Some people think that when you reach my age, your story is already written, that you've lived your life, as Jessica so cruelly put it. They couldn't be more wrong. Every morning we wake up is another chapter. Every challenge we face is another plot twist. And sometimes the most thrilling part of the story is when the character everyone underestimated turns out to be the hero.